There are a few reasons why I want to make this puzzle. First, I'm not in a convenient position to review any new puzzles right now, but I still want to show something on my channel. Secondly, I just want another puzzle to look forward to, and thirdly, my channel art was actually used to depict a puzzle I had on my drawing board, but I failed to turn it into a physical product. And while I know the Maglev Master Kilowings is a much cooler concept, the 3x2x2 is an actual puzzle that I have in my hands and it works. The puzzle that you're seeing here is actually a version 2. My Ender 2 Pro actually began its career printing a 3x2x2, and poetically enough, it might also end its career printing another 3x2x2, because as soon as I have enough stability in my life and also get my hands on enough resources to upgrade my 3D printer, I would most likely want to get a Bamboo Labs A1 Mini and a 0.2mm nozzle. Ender 2 Pro is quite an outdated budget model at this day and age, and I would need a better 3D printer to really do some of the more ambitious things I want to print. Jacob Cubing's 23x23 and 2x2x100 are testaments to what a stronger 3D printer with a smaller nozzle can do. But who knows, if I don't get to upgrade my printer, I might actually still make more puzzles. With the V1 being the first puzzle that I 3D printed, I naturally made a few mistakes that I learned from with my later on 3D prints. My main goal with the V1 was just to make it as light and fast as possible and as smooth as possible. So I oriented the pieces on the print bed such that the layer lines run parallel to the direction of the puzzle's turning, as I was trying to hollow the pieces out without support material. And anyone with decent knowledge with FDM printing can already see the problem with this. The edge overhangs are just along the weak points of FDM printing, which is layer adhesion. And while I did know at that point in time that layer adhesion is the weakest point of FDM printing, I wasn't expecting it to be that weak, and due to the fragility of the V1, I no longer have it with me. Trust the V2 is, to use Matt Barnes' terminology, is engineered like a tank. Since we are on the topic of layer adhesion already, the outer edges are actually printed with the overhang face down on the print bed, something like that. So you can see that the layer lines actually head in this direction, which means that there is no way that the overhanging face can break along the layer lines. The corners and the inner edges are actually printed in a way that is split in half, and then like the two halves are glued together. In theory, it will actually sacrifice the smoothness of the cube, because this piece is going to ride across like that and have the layer lines to rub against each other rather than being parallel, but at the same time the head of the piece and the foot of the piece are not separated by horizontal layer lines, so not as easy to rip the head off the root. Secondly, the entire puzzle is printed in PETG, a stronger material than PLA, which is what most 3D prints, including the V1, is made of. The mechanism of this puzzle is fundamentally a Moyi RS3. You can see the key feature of the RS3 is basically the spike at the bottom of the tip and the corner base being hollowed at the same height as the spike. You can kind of see the same thing here in the white plastic. There's a spike at the tip and the corner base is actually hollow. What I've really done here is to hide the middle layer of the RS3 on one axis, which creates the problem of having the inner layer to come out of alignment and jam the puzzle. But unlike higher order cubes or cubes with even numbers in more than one dimension, the 3x3x2 only has an even number in one dimension. And since it's next to an outside layer, we can just directly glue a single piece to the outside layer. Just like that. So with these two pieces glued together, the middle will never misalign, and if you flip it over to the opposite side, like these two pieces are stuck together, now the middle will go with the top instead of the bottom, but it will never dislodge on its own. Just to make the anchor piece easier to track, I specifically planned my color scheme such that the logo is on the anchor piece. The alignment of my 3x2x2 actually slightly differs from mass-produced models such as the Qi, and I actually learned this particular way of alignment from Nathan Wilson. Unfortunately, his original video on the 3x2x2 was lost when he deleted his old channel, but the point is, the Qi 3x2 can actually do illegal shape shifting and center swapping by doing things like that. Oh, these are not supposed to be moves that are allowed on the 3x2 because all vertical faces can only turn 180 degrees. How the Qi keeps itself in alignment is it actually glues one of the middle layer center pieces, meaning one of those hidden ones here, to an external edge. So this is the external edge. And when these two are glued together, what you can do is, when you turn the M slice 90 degrees out of the way, so now these two pieces are bandaged, you pretty much move the bandaged pieces out of the way and the entire middle slice is unbandaged pieces, and you are free to actually illegally swap two centers. So I don't have the cheap 3x3x2 with me, but if you have one, you can actually do that. On my 3x3x2, you can't do that because when these two pieces are on an outer layer, so when you M slice the middle, you can kind of do an illegal 2-edge swap still, but you cannot do a 2-center swap because the bottom layer is stuck due to these two pieces still being bandaged, and because it belongs to an outer layer, it's impossible to M slice the bandaged piece out of alignments. 3x2 has way better corner cutting than anything that has been mass produced in both directions. It is also magnetic. But the magnets are rather weak. And one notable thing about the magnet is it's actually edge center magnetized. So this all the hidden internal edges actually have a magnet that attract to the center, and you can see that the center has 4 magnets. There are a few reasons why I went with this magnetization scheme. The first is I want all the vertical faces to click only at 180 degrees. Of course, I think with the magnets that I use, it's currently too weak to feel the click. But if you were to follow this layout and use a much stronger magnet, you will only feel clicks at 180 degrees and not at 90. So the red and the orange centers actually don't have magnets in them, and the external edges only have 1 magnet, which faces down, and on this side there's actually no magnet. This means that actually all the vertical slices only have 2 magnets holding them in place, while the horizontal slices have 4, because here, this 1 magnet is over here times 4 plus you can see the centers. Whereas with this big internal edge, it has 1 magnet here and there's only these 2. It doesn't have the top 2. So for that, I balanced it out by making this one have a bigger magnet here. So this one is actually only a 1/3 magnet. This one is actually a 2/3 magnet. Whereas the centers are all the same. So with the centers, I also wanted my centers to be rotationally symmetrical, such that when you're assembling the puzzle, regardless of how you rotate the center, you will always get the same results. This is not the case if you made the middle layer a perfect cylinder, or do something like use an edge center magnetization on the middle but a corner, a different magnet scheme on the vertical slice. That will actually make the centers only symmetrical in 2 directions rather than 4 directions, which I'm definitely aiming for 4 directions when I'm designing this. My cuboid is not perfect and it has 2 major flaws. First, somewhere near the reverse corner cutting limit of this puzzle, it is actually possible for the outer plate of one of the pieces, the corners, to catch on the outer plate of the edge. Shown earlier, it's actually just a 3x3 with the middle layer cut down, and then the outer pieces are just extended with plates to hide the middle. So you can see it's empty down here, but when I reverse corner cut a bit too much, the plates actually catch on each other. And sometimes the cube actually stretches too much that it's possible to pop the internal edge out. So I'm not too sure exactly if the internal edge pop problem is linked to the catching problem, but I do think it is. I'm just not 100% sure. Popping does happen relatively frequently on this puzzle. In fact, if you see the average of 5 at the end, I actually got a pop. The 3x3x2 also has a handful of external differences from the mass-produced models. Firstly, the dimensions are quite non-proportional. Particularly, the 2-layer axis is roughly comparable in height to a 2x2 as well as the layer size, although I would say this is actually slightly bigger than a mass-produced 2x2. The 3x3 faces are also quite roughly comparable to a 3x3. So this cuboid actually stands at 52mm tall at 26 per layer, and the 3x3 faces are just 57mm at 19 per layer. So other than just giving more room to design a stable mechanism, I also think this is beneficial for the finger tricks, because you have more room to flick your finger. Secondly, obviously the color scheme is different, and this is mainly because I'm a red cross solver and cuboids are kind of solved in the vertical style. So the correct way to hold the cuboid is like this and not like that. Just for fun, it's also UV coated over the stickers. The earliest features includes a center cap design that is completely inspired by RC Pongo's dovetail design, but I've hollowed it in a way such that I can still design the screw higher. This is something I've changed compared to the Aolong GTS so-called. If you remember the cube from my PLA versus PETG video, I actually designed the dovetail upside down because I didn't want the like this block here to interfere with the height of the screw, because at first I thought if this block was solid I couldn't ascend the screw too high, and because of that I had to tension the puzzle super tight. So that was what I did to this puzzle when I was designing it, but the issue was the cap slided around too easily, because as you can see, the appendages here to hold onto the cap are actually really small, and the inside has to be hollow. This one, I just got around it by making this thing hollow. So I can actually tension the screw high enough without making the puzzle too tight. But the cap still slides on, and when the cube is fully assembled, it doesn't, like, the cap doesn't pop. This is mainly a limitation due to 3D prints being less accurate than a cap that fits in and out by friction. I've also designed the 3D model itself to contain core corner magnets, but as you can see from this flat stump here, the magnet's supposed to be glued here, but I didn't do it because I don't think the final result is good enough for me to spend that many magnets. So overall, I think this is a decent puzzle for what it is. I will be following up with a tutorial, since 3x2x2 is the most important puzzle to learn if you want to get into the world of cuboids. It will teach you most of the important algs you need to solve many cuboids bigger than itself. Even a few smaller cuboids, such as the 2x2x3, can rely on the same philosophy but skip a few steps, similar to how a 2x2 skips steps when you solve a 3x3. So I would say this is definitely a puzzle that more people should know about, and it's also quite a fun puzzle to play with.